The next question is about labour market inequality.
Thank you. Fiona, you're asking why there are now more people in London being paid less than the equivalent of the London living wage when I took office. Well, more people are now being paid more than the London living wage than when I took office, basically because there are more people in employment, and Londoners actually have a higher proportion of people, or put it another way around, the lowest proportion of workers on less than the living wage of any region in the country. So we've got more people as a proportion of the population in London on living wage incomes, even allowing for the London living wage, which is set at a higher level, as you know, than the rest of the country.
I think there's an issue about sort of how the stats are used in relation to your record on the living wage. And I think that if you look at what GLA Economics reports, it says that over 20% of jobs in London pay less than the living wage now. And in 2012, this was 17% of jobs. And in 2007, just before you came into office, this was 13% of all jobs. If you bear with me, it's actually going the other way to what you suggest. And the truth is that the London living wage rate isn't really worth the paper of your press release announcing the new rate unless there's more people being paid it. It's about the money in people's pockets.
More people are now being paid it, as I said.
Yes, but more people aren't.
More people are being paid it.
The proportion of jobs, if we go to the proportion of people who aren't, the proportion of people who are paid below the living wage has gone up, and the actual number of people who are paid below the living wage has also gone up. So you can argue that more people are paid it, but actually more people aren't paid it as well. So it's about which figure you want to concentrate on, the number of people who not being paid it, or the number of people who are.
It is also, I understand the point you make, Fiona, but it's also true that London, the proportion of people of London, as I said, who earn less than the living wage is lower than the rest of the country, even allowing for the fact that the living wage in this city is higher than in the rest of the country. So it's 17% in London paid less than the living wage, 22% in the rest of the country are paid
no, it's over 20% of jobs in London pay less than the London living wage.
17%.
No, it was 17% in 2012. The latest figure for London is 20% of jobs in London paying less than the living wage. So what I'm interested in is what percentage of jobs in London paid below the living wage are they going to be next year? Is it going to be higher or lower? What percentage is it going to be next year, higher or lower?
The figure I have is 17%.
Well, I've got a figure of 20%.
So you're out of date, Boris.
I think your figures are out of date because the 17% is from 2012. And over half of all working-age adults and children in poverty in London actually live in a household where somebody is working. So poverty pay is a massive issue in London, and unless people are paid and get a rate that pays for their work, it's difficult to see how people can get on in a high-cost city such as this. And data from the Office of National Statistics shows that average pay in London in real terms has fallen by £87 a week. That's in real terms for the average Londoner since 2009. So another failure on your watch is that in real terms the average pay has gone down, and the scandal of poverty pay is getting worse and not better.
We've got. Do you know by how much the number of jobs in London has increased since I've been mayor? It's gone up from 4.94 million to 5.6 million. That's more than 500,000 people more in work. That is an extraordinary expansion.
And how many of those? Are on poverty pay?
That's why there are more people being paid.
Work should pay. If people are in work, it should pay.
Above all, what you're seeing is the number of employers signed up to the living wage has doubled just in the last 12 months. And, as you know very well, we're taking all sorts of other measures to help people on low pay, cutting council tax, making sure that people continue to have access to...
But the overall costs for London is increasing out of all proportion. And in real terms, average pay has fallen by £87 a week in real terms. At the same time, FTSE 100 directors' pay increased by 21% over the past year alone to an average of a staggering 2.4 million annually, which is about 120 times the average worker. What is your message to Londoners on low pay about the message this sends?
My message to Londoners is that this is an administration that cares deeply about trying to ensure that they have the living wage, and we've expanded it, as I say, massively by about 1,500 times or whatever it is since I was elected.
But still, the number of people paid less than the living wage is going up, and as a proportion.
No, the number of people who are being paid more than the living wage is also going up. But the proportion is going up.
Well, the proportion is going up, and that matters.
That is because there has been a massive increase in jobs. And that's a good thing.
But the proportion, there's a massive increase in low-paid jobs, and people cannot afford to eat.
What you're comparing is people who have no job and people who are in work and are on the ladder.
But can't afford to eat, can't afford to pay their bills, can't afford the rent, can't afford to live in London.
Cutting council tax.
Do you agree? Do you agree?
And your policy, what you would rather have is everybody off on the dole.
That's absolutely patently not true. And I welcome the fact that the Tories have recognised the value of incentives, which has actually been Labour policy for some time. But I want to talk briefly about whether you think that, obviously, you've said before that you think that where people can afford to pay, they should. Do you agree with Arsenal's position on the living wage, or do you think they should listen to campaigners such as Fair Play, Fair Pay, and recognise that as Arsenal and other Premier League clubs clearly can afford to pay the living wage, they should do so?
I do. I agree. I agree that companies who can pay it should pay it, and many of them are now, and the movement is building. And I think that's a great thing to watch. And there are ways that, we've had an interesting discussion with Tony already about his proposal to try to encourage companies to pay, particularly small businesses. It's not always easy for everybody to pay, but big companies who have big cost bases can certainly do it. And they can do it without detriment to their shareholders. In fact, they can do it, it would be positive for their shareholders because they get a higher productivity, lower HR costs and more loyalty in their staff. So they should do it.
Okay, many of the jobs at football ground, as you'll be aware, will be part-time, and almost half the jobs paid below the living wage in London are part-time jobs compared to under 13% of full-time jobs. Do you believe that part-time work is effectively second-class work?
No, we believe in supporting everybody on low incomes in London and making sure that the maximum possible receive the living wage, and in ensuring that we do what we can to help people on low incomes through cut price travel for those in search of work, for 24-hour freedom pass, we've now got concessions for apprentices, in addition to all the other concessions that you know of on the transport network.
And will you have a specific focus on take-up on part-time jobs?
Absolutely, everybody has to pay. Every homeowner, every householder has to pay in London is the council tax, which we've cut our share by 24%.
Will you have a particular drive on increase of living wage among part-time
We have
workers?
just done something. I mean, I don't know whether you were listening to my opening statement, but we have just helped part-time workers with an effective cut in their
which is of minimal comparison to getting a decent pay. It would be much better if you just made sure everybody got a decent level of pay. I mean, it's very welcome,
depending on what their route is, and that will be of substantial benefit.
Okay, thank you.